Picture this, the American West, but darker, weirder, and bloodier than you've ever seen it. Vampires ride the rails, monsters rule the night, and the only thing standing between the living and a world gone feral is a gauntlet-wielding hunter who's just as fast with a joke as he is with a bullet. This is Evil West, a tale of family, betrayal, and blood-soaked revenge at the edge of civilization. Today, we're breaking down the full story, the rise of the Foulbloods, the fall of legends, and the desperate fight to save a country that might not deserve it. I'm Vigil, and this is Video Game Lore. Saddle up, and let's get into the wildest ride the West has ever seen. Evil West opens in an alternate, post-Civil War America, where the deserts are dry, the tech is steam-powered, and trouble rides the rails. Out in the scorched Badlands, the Persephone, a thunderous steam-driven train, barrels down the tracks. Hot on its heels are our hero, Jessie Rentier, and his oldest friend, the mildly grumpy, now retired hunter, Edgar. The pair chase after the train on horseback, with Jessie mentioning that Harrow claims they can trust his source. Edgar, ever the skeptic, mutters that it's actually Harrow he doesn't trust. Jessie can't resist poking fun at Edgar's post-retirement attitude, but Edgar shouts back that while he loves being retired, it's being forced to chase a runaway train that really ruins his golden years. Their target? A sanguisiege, this world's word for vampire. And his name is Chester Morgan. Jessie hopes Chester will be in a talkative mood, but Edgar cracks that nothing gets a conversation started like a little dynamite. Racing ahead of the train, they reach a massive wooden bridge just as the sun begins to set. Edgar reminds Jessie that setting the charges wrong could turn their suspect into a red smear instead of a valuable informant. Jessie assures him he's got it all handled as the train barrels closer, whistle screaming. Edgar signals Jessie to get ready, then tells him to blow the bridge. The resulting explosion is spectacular. The bridge collapses, and Jessie, watching the chaos, hopes that Harrow definitely won't be thrilled with their handiwork. Edgar dryly points out that Harrow is the Secretary of War, not Bridges. No time for regret. They need to check the wreckage. Edgar volunteers for the high ground, while Jessie gets the fun job of navigating the carnage below. Jessie crosses the ledge, surveying the battered train and the crumbling bridge, muttering that it doesn't look too bad, until another explosion nearly sends him flying. Forced to move faster, Jessie picks his way down a nearby path, only to overhear two bandits arguing over the train engine. Their squabble ends abruptly when a massive explosion engulfs them in fire. One of the cargo boxes is blasted free from the train, slamming into the ground and releasing a mindless sanguisiege, an infected vessel, who immediately lunges for Jessie. With a crack of his gauntlet, Jessie turns the creature into a blood-soaked memory. Along the way, Jessie encounters more dead bandits, impaled, bloodied, and rearranged by the newly released sanguisiege before pushing onward, muttering that all of this had better be worth it. Dropping off a cliff, Jessie is suddenly ambushed by a giant sanguisiege, a monstrous mutated member of the local Janu tribe. The beast is big, but not fast enough for Jessie, who brings it down and then vaults by some train wreckage where Edgar checks in, pointing out that Jessie looks like he could use a hand. Jessie takes the fight to the front lines, while Edgar picks off enemies from a distance with his rifle, making short work of the sanguisiege horde. The adventure is only just beginning, and Evil West wastes no time proving that in this world, the only thing deadlier than the monsters are the people hunting them. With Edgar's sharpshooting support, Jessie manages to take down the last of the infected vessels and the towering Janu giants. Edgar urges Jessie to hurry up and find Chester, so Jessie scrambles over the wreckage, climbing higher to press forward. More of the bridge collapses behind him, and Jessie can't help but quip that Harrow is definitely gonna dock his pay for this mess. As Jessie makes his way further down the cliff, another explosion erupts, this time sending another train tumbling over the edge. Jessie fights his way through one of the train cars, emerging into a hellscape of wrecked trains and roaring flames. Edgar calls down, lighting a stick of dynamite and asking if he can join Jessie in the fun. Jessie keeps using his advanced weaponry to battle the creatures pouring from the wreckage, while Edgar rains dynamite from above, not just to clear out the monsters, but to keep Jessie on his toes. After Jessie takes down the last of the horde, a loud bang echoes from one of the train cars. Suddenly, a monstrous carrion husk bursts through the doors, roaring in rage. Jessie shouts, asking what the hell this thing is, and launches into an all-out assault, using every weapon at his disposal to bring it down. Once the beast falls, Jessie and Edgar kick open the door to Chester's train car. Chester wastes no time taking a jab at Jessie, claiming he's still on his father's leash, then bares his fangs. Jessie responds the only way he knows how, by punching Chester in the face and throwing him to the ground as Edgar surveys the train car, noticing all the blood stored in the orb containers. Edgar accuses Chester, pointing out that he knows Chester is heading to a gathering and asks if all the blood is meant for the event. Chester tries to keep up his smart-ass routine, feigning ignorance, but Jessie has no patience for games. He smashes Chester's head through the wall, exposing his face to the setting sun. Chester screams in pain as his skin begins to burn. Jessie pulls him back inside as Edgar reminds him that too much sunlight isn't great for Chester's skin condition. Chester, desperate, says the sun is nothing compared to what the others will do to him if he talks. Jessie suggests they test that theory, grabbing him and preparing to toss him out into the sunlight. Terrified, Chester finally cracks, revealing that the gathering is in Belmontville. Jessie tells Chester he made the right choice and promotes him to their new guide. Without missing a beat, Jessie throws Chester into a wooden casket, complete with a cross carved on top, as Edgar points out that Belmontville is even further from the Institute, and urges haste. Jessie reminds Edgar that they have been chasing DeBano for months, and a few more hours won't make a difference. Edgar grumbles that Jessie's father will have his head if they miss the presentation, but Jessie just laughs, pointing out that Edgar's retired and can't be fired. With a laugh and a friendly bump to Edgar's chest, the two hunters tie Chester and his makeshift coffin to the horses and set out, ready for whatever the town of Belmontville and its monsters have in store next. The sun climbs high the next day as Jessie and Edgar continue their ride, still dragging Chester's coffin through the blazing desert. By midday, they reach the outskirts of Belmontville. Edgar reminds Jessie that they'll be going in blind when it comes to the maze of mines. Jessie points out that if Chester is telling the truth, DeBano should be waiting for them there. Chester, muffled from inside his coffin, insists that his current predicament doesn't exactly make lying an option. Edgar retorts that if Chester helps lift the illusion in the mines, he'll be free to go. Chester protests, explaining that even his knowledge of the glamour has its limits. Jessie can't help himself, joking that if Chester wants to limit himself, they can just let him walk around without his head. The two men ride into town, finding it eerily empty. Edgar observes that it's probably crawling with familiars, humans allied with the Sanguisiege. Dismounting, Jessie readies his rifle and asks Edgar if he really thinks he's going to join him. Edgar sighs, realizing he's stuck babysitting Chester instead. Chester complains that he can't run during the day, which is why the Sanguisiege use familiars, and begins to doubt their qualifications as hunters. Edgar responds by kicking the coffin and declaring that familiars should be shot on sight. He then teases Chester, offering him some dynamite as a new waistcoat. Chester quips that his tailor would be horrified, and Jessie jokes that the two are already bonding. With a grin, Jessie cocks his rifle and heads off, as Edgar shouts after him to eat him. Jessie heads into town, soon stumbling upon a group of familiars. He catches them off guard, but they quickly recover and open fire. Jessie uses his hunting skills to take out the human conspirators, moving swiftly through the streets. In the next area, he's ambushed by several sharpshooters, but he returns fire with his rifle and drops them one by one. With the high ground cleared, Jessie turns his attention to the familiars on the street, dispatching them with his gauntlet. Reaching the edge of town, Jessie finds a large hole in the ground. He figures it must lead to the caves, which means the gathering can't be far off. Steeling himself, Jessie leaps down into the mines below, ready for whatever horrors await in the darkness. Inside the labyrinth of the mines, Jessie makes his way through the dark, twisting corridors, eventually squeezing through a narrow passageway. After pushing through endless spider webs, he emerges into a chamber filled with ancient stone pillars and structures. Knowing DeBano must be close, Jessie heads deeper into the strange mines, searching for his bounty. At the end of a stone bridge, Jessie's progress is halted by a magical barrier, a glamour created by the Sanguisiege. Edgar soon arrives, dragging along Chester, who is now sporting a brand new vest made entirely of dynamite. Jessie, visibly annoyed, tells Chester that he knows he sees the barrier and needs him to take it down now. Chester quips that it feels like their first date, and he's not even that kind of man. Edgar, ever the charmer, strikes a match and holds it near the dynamite, suggesting he could help set the mood. Chester panics and quickly agrees to remove the glamour, muttering that it's hard to separate an illusion from its source. Edgar asks what the source is, but Chester warns him that he doesn't want to know. Stretching out his hand, Chester begins to recite an ancient incantation. Energy builds, and finally, the glamour shatters. With the way clear, Jessie and Edgar push Chester forward, heading deeper into the ancient ruins. Edgar jokes that he should handle the dynamite, while Jessie should go after Debano. Jessie asks if it's because of the bridge, to which Edgar replies, it might be. Jessie reminds Edgar that he at least took care of the train, then moves ahead to scout. As Jessie delves deeper into the caverns, he spots a massive, upside-down pyramid unlike anything he's ever seen. Jessie fights off more lower-ranked sanguisiege prowling the shadows, moving closer to the colossal structure. He marvels at its scale, wondering how and when such a thing could have been built. Crossing the bridge, Jessie battles through another wave of wild sanguisiege before overhearing Debano's voice. Debano is speaking to someone named Dominic, explaining that humans are growing stronger, and urging that their kind must come out of hiding if they hope to survive. He warns that in their current state, they stand no chance, that humans will simply outnumber them in the end. Debano insists that there's a difference between surviving and being a coward. Jessie silently edges closer as Dominic interrupts, arguing that Debano's bloodline's thirst for violence keeps them on the brink of war with humanity. Debano finishes the sentiment, agreeing that the wolves may go hungry without the sheep, but points out that the sheep are getting smarter. A small blonde girl stands beside Debano as he tells the elders that humans have harnessed steam and lightning, making them more powerful than ever before. Debano warns that if they don't act, the humans will hunt them down and destroy them. Dominic challenges him, asking if he's suggesting a war with humanity. Debano clarifies that he wants to strike first, not wage a war. He assures them they can control the change with his new asset, putting vampires back at the top of the food chain. Dominic calls trying to control the change blasphemy, but Debano counters that blasphemous times call for blasphemous measures. If they don't adapt, they'll all perish. Dominic, enraged, declares Debano guilty of crimes against his kind and sentences him and his line to the true death. The little girl, Felicity, calls Debano father and reminds him she warned this would happen. Debano agrees, but insists that they had to try, and that making the elders understand would have helped their plan. Felicity says if persuasion fails, they'll use force. The gathering breaks up, Dominic and the elders vanish, and Jessie steps into the chamber behind them. Debano grabs Jessie by the throat, lifting him into the air and laughing. Suddenly, a shot rings out. Debano is hit in the arm and drops Jessie. Debano turns to see Edgar, rifle in hand, firing again and hitting him in the back. Jessie takes the opening and uppercuts Debano, sending him crashing flat into the chamber's pool of blood. Debano folds his arms and sinks beneath the red liquid, when suddenly, 3 massive strands of blood rise from the pool and begin to swirl menacingly. As a sanguisiege highborn, Debano unleashes his true power, transforming into a monstrous, bat-like creature. The beast screeches at Jessie, who stands his ground and readies his gauntlet and every weapon in his arsenal. The battle is fierce, but Jessie's relentless assault lands the final, decisive blow. The monstrous Debano collapses, shifting back into his normal form. With the fight over, Jessie and Edgar stand over their defeated foe. Edgar calmly pulls out a massive knife, bending down toward Debano. Jessie, ever the wisecracker, asks if Edgar could have found an even bigger blade to use. Edgar lifts Debano's head and remarks to Jessie that while most people retire with a gold watch, he got his favorite knife Susan instead. Edgar sets to work, cutting at Debano's neck until he finally decapitates the highborn sanguisiege. He stands back up, and both men look at their handiwork with a sense of satisfaction. Jessie suggests Edgar should ask Debano how they're supposed to get out of the mines now. Edgar dryly replies that Debano won't be saying anything for several months. Edgar then brings up Chester, but Jessie laughs off the whole situation, finding some humor amidst the chaos they've just survived. Back on the surface, a loud explosion echoes through the air as Jessie and Edgar escape from the mines and mount their horses. They begin to prepare to ride out. Edgar compliments Jessie on the way he shaped those explosives, then suddenly remembers that they're late heading home. Jessie doesn't deny it, but he points out that they're not returning empty-handed. The 2 men continue their journey back to the Institute, Debano's severed head swinging from their satchel, a grim trophy and proof that even running late, they know how to deliver results. The 2 men ride their horses down the long, dusty path that leads to the Rentier Institute. Jessie, lost in thought, suddenly looks up and sees a giant airship flying overhead, making its way toward his home. Edgar, never wants to miss a chance at sarcasm, mocks James Harrow, the hero of the people, and jokes that he's heard Harrow gets gold toilet tissue as long as he keeps the president's backside safe from the sanguisiege. They arrive at the front of the manor, dismounting as several people unload bags and suitcases from a parade of carriages, all gathered for the upcoming presentation. Edgar grabs Debano's head, and Jessie asks why he isn't staying for the show. Edgar says he'll pass on all the corporate shilling. He doesn't need another lecture about being retired. Handing over Debano's head, Edgar tells Jessie to take it to his father before the monster wakes up and tries to kill everyone. Jessie jokes that he'll tell his father Edgar traded vampire hunting for drinking cheap liquor. Edgar just waves him off, telling Jessie to say whatever he wants. As Jessie turns to go, he calls out that Edgar still owes him a final drink after the presentation, no matter what. William Rentier, Jessie's father, sits at a desk preparing for the presentation as his son walks through the door. William asks him if Edgar is with him, and Jessie replies that Edgar says hi, but doesn't want to be roped out of retirement again. William remarks that neither of them want that, and Jessie places Debano's head on a stand. Jessie then mentions that Edgar risked his hide to bring it back for him. William reminds Jessie that the mission was actually Harrow's, and that Harrow will likely thank them for it. Jessie, growing offended, points out that hunting is all Edgar knows, and that the Institute made sure of that. This retort angers his father, who slams his hand down and questions Jessie's phrasing of calling it his institute. Trying to stand with his bum leg, William insists that it isn't about Edgar, but about the family being on the verge of true progress. He tells Jessie the presentation is important for the family's future. Jessie interrupts, reminding his father that Edgar is family too. William ignores the interruption, pressing on and making it clear that he expects Jessie to take up his new position at the manor. Jessie angrily pushes back, insisting he's not a desk jockey, he's a field agent. William slams his fist on the desk, shouting that Jessie is a rentier. He then bemoans that he always has to dumb these things down for his son, insisting there are more important things than just hunting, and that someday Jessie will understand. William warns that if Jessie can't see that now, he'll force the change himself. He then dismisses Jessie, telling him to go prepare for the presentation. Jessie turns and leaves scowling as William yells for someone to clean up the mess. Jessie answers by slamming the door behind him, leaving the room thick with tension and unresolved family legacies. Sometime later, the Institute's grand presentation hall fills with an eager crowd as Harrow, William, and Jessie take their places at the center, standing in front of a massive machine crackling with electricity. William steps forward to speak, but before he can get out a word, Harrow nervously cuts him off and asks everyone to take their seats. Harrow introduces himself as the Assistant Secretary of War, expressing his and President Cleveland's appreciation for everything the Rentier Institute does to protect the country. He goes on to praise their extraordinary efforts in defending the nation from monsters that have infested the land. Trying to lighten the mood, Harrow jokes that the president also wanted to make sure taxpayer dollars weren't being wasted on Mexican Monte. He closes by telling everyone to keep up the good work and throws in a God bless the USA for good measure. Applause erupts as William finally steps forward to continue the presentation. He admits that it's rare for them to gather in such large numbers, but says that major breakthroughs are a cause for celebration. William explains that their fight against the sanguisiege has always been hampered by the vampire's glamours, illusions that let them escape capture or hide. William invites Jessie to step forward, revealing that he's now wearing an enhanced gauntlet. William explains they've upgraded the gauntlet and dubbed it the Zapper, a name as simple as it is effective. He tells the audience that the electricity from the Zapper shatters glamours, stripping away illusions and revealing the truth beneath. William declares that once the Zappers are fully produced, they'll be distributed across the country, making it possible to destroy every glamour and expose every sanguisiege. As William speaks, chaos unfolds above. Harrow's ship is on fire and heading straight for the manor. Harrow spots the doomed vessel, his eyes widening with shock. William, unaware, proclaims this is a new era, one where their enemy can no longer surprise them. But surprise comes anyway. The airship crashes into the presentation hall, obliterating support beams and igniting a massive explosion. The blast tears open the walls, and hordes of sanguisiege known as boo hags pour in, tearing into the assembled humans with ferocious speed. William draws his gun and fires, taking out a boo hag as he shouts for Jessie to hurry and find Edgar. Jessie fights off a few more vampires, determination etched on his face. He sets his jaw, steeling himself, and charges off to find Edgar amidst the chaos and flames. Jessie pushes through the burning wreckage, not just of the airship, but of the only home he's ever known. Fighting his way through waves of Sango Siege, he searches desperately for a sign of Edgar. Eventually, Jessie finds himself in the basement, where a stagecoach loaded with supplies sits ready. Edgar is on the far side of the room, stunned to see Jessie alive. Jessie quickly asks where his father is, and Edgar replies that the last time he saw William, he was kicking ass. Jessie rolls his eyes, calling his father a fool for thinking he can still fight like he used to. Edgar brings him back to the task at hand, telling Jessie that William wants them to destroy the archives before the vampires can get to them. Edgar urges Jessie to destroy the archive and meet him out front while he goes and tracks down Harrow. Jessie laments the idea of blowing up his own home as he moves through the halls, comforting injured Institute men and vowing vengeance on whoever orchestrated the attack. Passing through a room lined with the severed heads of thousands of Sango Siege, Jessie is taunted, voices calling to be let out, warning that she is going to kill him. He yells back at the heads to shut up and pushes onward to the boiler room in the basement. There, Jessie draws his rifle and shoots the gas pipes, igniting a series of explosions. Before he can escape, several Sango Siege descend upon him, but Jessie uses the zapper to fight them off and barely escapes as the basement erupts into flames behind him. Jessie battles through more fires and wreckage from the airship, finally making his way back outside the manor. Suddenly, more boo hags and lower Sango Siege leap from the flames to attack. Jessie unleashes his full arsenal, taking down the monsters, and pushes on to a large open area near his father's office. Inside, the manor is a charnel house of blood and bodies, and a monstrous roar echoes through the halls. Both Edgar and Jessie arrive at the same time, Edgar asking what that unholy noise was. Through the flames in William's office, they see the shadow of a man being strangled by a massive creature, which then hurls the battered body out of the room, right at their feet. Jessie recognizes his father and orders Edgar to get him to safety. The monstrous figure's shadow disappears as Felicity's voice rings out from the flaming office. She tells her father, Devano, not to be mad. She couldn't leave him with them. Felicity steps into view, holding her father's severed head, bloody and furious, glaring at Jessie. Jessie reacts instantly, firing his revolver at her, but Felicity dodges the bullets with supernatural speed. She shouts at him to stop, warning that he almost shot Devano. In a flash of rage, Felicity zips across the room, zigzagging so fast, Jessie barely tracks her before she blasts him with her power, sending him flying. She uses her ability to pin Jessie to the floor, preparing to strike the final blow. The fires in the basement rage higher, that the once mighty Institute is now covered in ash and blood. As boiler room pressure mounts, Jessie struggles to get up, but Felicity dashes over and pins him with her foot, taunting that she had hoped he'd put up more of a fight. Suddenly, the boiler room explodes, and the oncoming flames distract Felicity long enough for Jessie to uppercut her and roll clear. The manor is now fully engulfed in fire. Outside, Edgar helps William and Harrow into a carriage. Jessie and Edgar take one last look at the Institute before fleeing the destruction. Back in the ruins, Sango Siege emerge from the flames as Felicity raises her hand, commanding them to pursue. Her eyes burn with hatred as she watches the survivors escape. The Institute lost to the Inferno as the war for the West is just beginning. Edgar drives the carriage at breakneck speed, trying to outrun the relentless vampires pursuing them. Jessie hangs out the side, firing shot after shot and taking down as many of their pursuers as he can before glancing back into the carriage. Inside, Harrow is in a full panic, shouting at Edgar to go faster and begging not to be left to die. William, badly wounded, mutters that he nearly killed Felicity if not for his bum leg, then jokes to Jessie that getting old is the real curse. Jessie brushes it off, swearing he'll never get married either, and reassures his father that he knows what he's doing. William places a hand on Jessie's zapper, telling him it's the key, the only real hope they have left, and that everything now rests on Jessie's shoulders. As William begins to lose consciousness, Jessie tells Edgar they need to stop. Harrow protests, insisting they need to keep going, but Jessie says they need to find a place to defend themselves until sunrise, and then they can head to Calico. Pulling into a small town, Jessie jumps off the carriage and starts boarding up the gates. Harrow, ever the pessimist, grumbles that his wife could destroy the whole place with a single fart. Edgar ignores him, telling Jessie they need the high ground. Jessie points out the tallest spot in town, noting the sun will hit there first, and Edgar agrees, promising to get the horses and William up there. Edgar hands Jessie a sawed-off shotgun, and together they brace for the coming assault. Wave after wave of sanguisiege descend on the town, and Jessie does everything he can to hold them off, moving steadily higher with each attack. Eventually, they reach their last stand. Edgar and Jessie fight side by side as Harrow supports William, trying to keep him upright. Edgar warns that he's running out of ammo just as Jessie manages to activate his zapper. Electricity crackles from the gauntlet, and Jessie grins, making quick work of the remaining vampires, eviscerating each wave with the power of the zapper. As dawn finally breaks, Jessie grabs the last sanguisiege and hurls it into the morning light, watching as it burns into flames and turns to ash. Edgar, catching his breath, asks if Jessie is out of lightning, and Jessie nods, quipping that they'll always have the sun on their side. Harrow brings William forward, gently laying him down with a gasp that he's not sure the old man is even breathing anymore. Edgar points out that Calico is close and that they have a doctor there. Jessie rushes to grab his father, determined to get him to the town and save what family he has left. In Calico, business carries on as usual in a nearby saloon, where a woman with glasses sits at a table, surrounded by a stack of books. She hears a commotion outside, horses approaching at speed, and stands to investigate. The sounds grow louder, her gaze sharpening, until Jessie and Edgar burst through the door, carrying the wounded William. Edgar calls out for the doctor, pleading for help. The woman, Dr. Amelia Blackwell, immediately instructs the bartender Lewis to initiate the emergency protocols. Lewis pulls a lever, and at the back of the saloon, a giant cask swings open, revealing a hidden section of the building. Dr. Blackwell leads the men inside, guiding them to an operating room. As they lay William on the gurney, she orders Jessie to sit and roll up his sleeve. Amelia tells Jessie they'll do everything they can to save his father, hooking up their arms for a direct blood transfusion. Jessie looks at his father's extensive injuries with real concern. Exhaustion from blood loss and lack of sleep overtakes him as he drifts into a dream. Jessie's mind fills with the visions of the attack, the flames, the chaos, and the burning rage on Felicity's face. Suddenly, in his dream, a hand reaches out to touch his zapper gauntlet. Jessie snaps awake, startling a nearby man who falls over in panic. Edgar quickly reassures Jessie, explaining that this man is the cell's engineer. The man introduces himself as Vigil Olney, saying it's an honor to meet the legendary Jessie. He calls the zapper a piece of engineering genius, but Jessie cuts him off, insisting it needs to be fixed yesterday. Vigil, trying to keep things light, jokes that he'd need a bigger lab to solve time travel, but both Jessie and Edgar shut him down with a stare. Jessie asks about the situation. Edgar tells him that Harrow's looking for someone to blame for the disaster at the Institute. Jessie counters that no one could have predicted Felicity would show up to reclaim her father's head. Edgar says there's more to it than just that, promising they'll see Felicity again. He tells Jessie he's going to help the doctor with Harrow, who can be heard in the distance shouting for a coffee. Edgar sighs, telling Jessie he'll see him in the briefing room. Moments later, Jessie arrives at the briefing room to hear the others discussing the Institute's chain of command now that William is out of commission. Amelia points out that protocol says Jessie is next in line. Harrow can't believe it. He then starts complaining that he expected to be wined and dined when he reached the Institute, but instead got attacked by a furious sanguisiege who had slapped everyone around like ragdolls. He shouts that the whole country is in danger while he looks like an idiot and demands to know how this was allowed to happen. Edgar explains that security was ordered to protect the most valuable asset, but Harrow insists that should have been himself. Jessie says his father made the call, and Edgar saved him regardless. Harrow dismisses this, warning that it won't matter once he tells the president they've lost their only line of defense. Amelia tries to reassure Harrow that they'll handle it, but Harrow snaps back, belittling the Calico cell as a bunch of nobodies in the middle of nowhere. Amelia calmly reminds him not to judge. They have the highest survival rate and the best engineer, and they're his only shot. Harrow demands a full report first thing in the morning, storms out, and shoves Vigil aside, as Vigil then asks if he's really the best engineer. Jessie tells Vigil he'd better hope so, because the gauntlet needs fixing before Harrow comes back to kill them all. Edgar mutters that Harrow can suck his, but Jessie quickly interrupts, holding out the zapper and asking what the damage is. Vigil reports that the glamour disruptor and the insulation are both damaged, prompting Jessie to demand whether he can fix it. Vigil says he can, but he'll need up to a month to get it working again. Edgar protests that a month isn't good enough. They need to kill Felicity as soon as they find her. Jessie points out that they don't even know where to look. That's when Amelia interrupts, hinting that the situation isn't as hopeless as it seems. Meanwhile, Agent Scott Bloom ventured into the Devil's Pass to investigate rumors of a monstrous conspiracies terrorizing the area. As he tracked the beast, he took copious notes for the Institute's bestiary.
This species appears to possess shape-shifting abilities, most uncommon for the typical sanguisuge. I dare say, this ability might be blood-dependent, but it's hard to tell based on the limited amount of evidence found. I'm wondering if we're witnessing some sort of accelerated evolution, spurred perhaps by certain unknown environmental factors. Research continues, but nothing I've seen explains the unusual capabilities of this curious animal. Judging by the diameter of the tunnels it creates, I estimate it stands at least 8 feet tall and is quite powerful. I find the flying creatures most disturbing. They appear in large numbers, protecting the newly transformed sanguisuges like hornets guarding their hive. It's not clear if that's their only purpose. Perhaps they also gather sustenance and function as scouts.
Eventually, Bloom found himself trapped in the creature's lair, with several familiars closing in. With no choice, he chose to hide and pray that help would arrive. Back in Calico, Dr. Amelia tells Jessie that north of them lies a canyon called the Devil's Pass, where there have been reports of a strange vampiric creature attacking travelers. Initially, the team didn't believe the rumors, but they sent Scott to investigate anyway. Jessie hopes she sent a field agent and not just another egghead, but Amelia points out that Scott literally helped write the book on the Institute's bestiary. Jessie grumbles that what they need are soldiers, not bookworms, and that he can't keep running all over the West looking for missing researchers and hoping they'll be useful. He sighs and asks when Scott last checked in. Amelia tells him it's been 5 days. Determined, Jessie rides to the Devil's Pass, dismounts, and prepares to enter the canyon labyrinth. His search leads him past the slaughtered caravan, and he wonders what kind of mess Scott has gotten into. Jessie pushes past the carnage, climbs a massive chain, and at the top, finds a man in agony, his body twisting and transforming as his bones snap and lengthen until he becomes a Noggle, this world's version of a werewolf. 2 more Noggles burst onto the scene, but Jessie relies on his arsenal and training to take down the fast, powerful creatures. After the fight, Jessie heads deeper into the canyon, overhearing familiars plotting an ambush. Unfazed, he pushes forward anyway, is ambushed by gunfire and falling boulders, and soon finds himself facing the servant brute that smashes through the area in a rage. Jessie, undaunted, fights back and kills every last one. Continuing on, Jessie hears a loud banging from behind a metal door. He flips the switch, squeezes through, and is ambushed by a transformed highborn sanguisuge. The fight is brutal, but Jessie's gauntlet turns the tide yet again. After the battle, Jessie heads out of the cave when a giant mole-like creature called a Gauro erupts from the ground. The creature startles Jessie as it roars and then tunnels away. Jessie follows the beast to its nest, entering an area strewn with bones and hanged corpses. The Gauro bursts from the earth and attacks. For the first time in a while, Jessie has to rely on real patience and timing, but he finally weakens the beast enough to deliver the killing blow. Looking around at the carnage, Jessie spots a large leech-like creature slithering away. And then, hears a voice, Scott Bloom, hiding among the pile of bodies, relieved to see his rescuer. Jessie helps Scott out and asks him to explain what happened. Scott says he was studying the Gauro when a group of familiars appeared. Jessie, looking over the fallen monster, wonders how it could be a familiar, since humans didn't turn that fast. Scott praises Jessie's curiosity, explaining that he thinks it's linked to the blood from the giant leeches, though he hasn't figured out the details. Jessie admits he doesn't know why the familiars were there, but insists they need to take the creatures back for study. Scott suggests that the familiars were on a transport mission and were moving a convoy of those leeches to McCallum's Sawmill. Jessie agrees they need to check it out. The 2 men gather some specimens, mount up, and head back to Calico, ready for the next mystery that was in store. Later that day, Edgar sits at the bar in the saloon when Jessie walks in and asks if he's leaving just because they ran out of whiskey. Edgar jumps up, more serious than usual, and points out that William had a lot of blood on him when they brought him in. Jessie just shrugs, saying his father is too stubborn to die. But Edgar, drawing on years of battlefield experience, tells Jessie that he's seen plenty of wounds before, and what William was carrying wasn't just his own. He points out that the airship crashing and the Sanguis siege tearing through the manor, maybe the enemy had another objective in mind. Jessie, suddenly wary, asks if Edgar is suggesting his father was infected. Jessie emphatically denies that, but Edgar urges Jessie to calm down and really think about it. How did the vampires manage to attack the Institute, slaughter everyone, and then just let him and his father walk away? Edgar then reminds him that when vampires turn to familiar, the sire can see the servant's mind. He then asks if they did that with his father, who created weapons like the Zapper, but Jessie interrupts him, saying that the rule for the infected is to kill them on sight, his father's very own rules. Edgar tells him to breathe, as his plan is to use the plant he brought from Lake Maurepas that was to be used as a base for a cure. Jessie says that he isn't gambling his father's life on some bog witch's magic potion. Edgar retorts that they don't have many options left, with the Bono's spawn now bringing the fight straight to them. He admits he doesn't like the idea of fighting a war without their general. Jessie finally gives in, saying he'll scour the ruins of the Institute to look for the plant they need. Edgar stops him and says he'll take care of it himself. Jessie's priority is to help fix the Gauntlet. Jessie, frustrated, says he doesn't care about the Zapper and refuses just to sit and wait for his father to start growing fangs. Edgar tries to sympathize, reminding Jessie that if he fails, at least Jessie and the Gauntlet are still humanity's best line of defense against a war they can't afford to lose. He reassures Jessie that he's got this and tells him to keep an eye on the nosy doctor and his father in case he's not back in time. With that, Edgar heads out in search of the flower, while Jessie heads down into the cell's briefing room. Entering, he finds Amelia and Scott deep in discussion, going over Scott's findings and their concerns. Scott recaps that Sanguis siege have always reproduced by turning familiars, a process that's slow but effective. Amelia points out that the new breeds spreading like a plague aren't just formidable, there's something different. Scott adds that while these new types are dangerous, they can't be called an evolutionary leap. Instead, he calls them a bloodthirsty devolution. Jessie chimes in, calling them cannon fodder, the Bono's army of mindless, foul-blooded beasts. The name Foulblood catches Scott's attention, and he repeats it with interest, suggesting they head to the Sawmill to study the phenomena further. Amelia warns that the Sawmill won't be easy to reach with all the glamours, especially with the Gauntlet out of commission. Jessie says it's time to pay Vigil a visit. Jessie and Amelia approach Vigil at his workstation, finding him frantically searching for parts and tools. When he finally notices them, he asks where he left his notes. Amelia urges him to get to the point. Vigil starts talking about Faraday's mutual induction phenomena, but Amelia cuts him off, telling him to skip the big words. He's talking to a field agent, not a scientist. Vigil almost cracks a bad science joke, but wisely stops himself. Igniting a large electrical power source, Vigil reveals that he's reverse engineered the Gauntlet and found the problem. It takes way too much energy to run. Jessie can't help but mock Vigil's groundbreaking discovery, but Amelia encourages Vigil to finish explaining. Vigil says that making the device smaller has its limits, and that a working disruptor simply won't be very portable. Jessie, now visibly frustrated, reminds Vigil that if it isn't portable, it's useless to him in the field. He warns that if he can't get it working, they're all doomed, and presses again. Can Vigil fix it or not? Vigil thinks for a moment, then says that if he can get some parts from the original disruptor, he might be able to do it. Jessie, not wasting a second, interrupts and demands to know where he can find them. Vigil explains to Jessie that some time ago, the Institute received reports of an anomaly in a mining town that turned out to be a glamour. William had sent Vigil with several coils to disrupt the glamour, but before the team could finish the job, they were all killed by Sanguis siege. Amelia adds that for vampires to slaughter everyone, they must be hiding something important. Jessie asks how to recognize the coils, but Vigil starts explaining an overly technical scientist jargon. Jessie quickly cuts him off, telling Vigil to pack up his gear. He's coming along for the ride. Several hours later, Vigil and Jessie arrive at the snow-filled, abandoned mining town. They dismount, and Jessie tells Vigil he'll clear out the vampires and warns him not to die, or Amelia will have his hide. Vigil agrees, and Jessie heads into town, finding his way through packs of sanguisuge until he finally finds Vigil waiting near an elevator. The two climb aboard the lift, but it doesn't work at first. Vigil fiddles with the controls until the platform abruptly drops. When it stops, they catch their breath, and Jessie hops off to clear the area. After dispatching the last of the beasts, Jessie powers up the generator, and a mining cart rolls down the tracks to meet them. Vigil asks if Jessie is really sure about using the carts, and Jessie reminds him that he's the one who said their target was at the end of the rails. Vigil warns it won't be the safest route, but Jessie just grins and tells Vigil he's no fun. Vigil decides to take a different path, while Jessie hops in the cart, riding the rails and blasting switches and dynamite to clear the way. He rides the track wildly down to the bottom, then swings across the loading dock to look for the coils. No sooner does Jessie step forward than a vampire highborn awakens and leaps down to challenge him. The creature summons a swarm of sanguisuge, launching a fierce attack. Jessie dashes around the dock, laying waste to the vampires, even as he battles the highborn head-on. After a brutal fight, Jessie emerges victorious. Jessie and Vigil then head deeper into the mine to find out what the sanguisuge have been so desperate to guard. As they make their way through the pitch-black tunnels, Vigil asks if it's safe yet, and Jessie cracks that as long as he can grope his way to the coils, it's fine. Vigil jokes that he's used to dark and messy, just as Jessie hits a nearby power switch. Vigil starts to thank him until he spots a giant fossilized creature looming in the darkness. He freaks out, asking Jessie what it is. Jessie admits this is definitely worth putting up a glamour for. Vigil says it reminds him of the dinosaurs recently discovered in the desert, then gets distracted by paperwork on a workbench. Vigil announces it's a pre-Columbian creature the Native Americans called a piazza. He's thrilled, saying Scott will go crazy as he majored in mythological studies. And seeing something like this in person is even better. Jessie, meanwhile, is thinking about Felicity building a Foulblood army and wonders aloud what the ancient beast has to do with her plans. Vigil notes that the last journal entry was written 3 years ago, right when the sanguisuge first arrived in the mining town. Jessie concludes that the creature must be important to Felicity since they've been guarding it for so long. He urges Vigil to grab the coils so that they can get the Gauntlet ready for battle. The next day at Calico Cell headquarters, Jessie jokes about how fast Vigil managed to fix the Gauntlet, asking if it's really ready this time. Suddenly, Scott bursts into the room panicked, announcing that they have a problem. Jessie, busy and already annoyed, tells him to spit it out. Scott struggles to explain that a few vampires got loose in the basement. Jessie, now visibly angry, demands confirmation. Did Scott really just say that? Scott admits he was running some tests on them, but things got out of hand. Jessie storms in close, ready to throttle Scott, but Vigil intervenes, suggesting that before Jessie kills Scott, they should use this opportunity to test the zapper. Jessie grumbles that Vigil makes it really hard to like him. Vigil explains that the malfunction that saved Jessie and his father was actually an override protocol, and that now Jessie can control that feature for attacks. Jessie warns him that it better work, or he'll malfunction Vigil's face next. He's tired of cleaning up after Egghead mistakes. Storming off toward the basement, Jessie ignores Scott's plea not to tell Amelia about the incident. At the basement level, Jessie activates his gauntlet and jumps into the pit to confront the loose sanguisuge. Feeling the new surge of power, he makes quick work of the vampires, eventually crushing the last one. Exiting the pit, Jessie finds a regretful Scott waiting at the entrance. Scott thanks him for the help, but Jessie demands to know why live vampires were in the basement to begin with. Scott sheepishly admits it was for research, but promises it won't happen again. He lets Jessie know Amelia is waiting for him in the briefing room. Jessie heads up and finds Amelia, who hands him a document from Edgar, asking if it's good or bad news. Jessie says it's private, and Vigil excuses himself from the room. Jessie then asks Amelia about the giant creature they found in the mines and what it could have been used for. She says she has some ideas, but wants to know why Scott is keeping his father hidden from everyone. Jessie explains it's for security reasons. Her cell is the last one still operating in the country, and he intends to keep it that way by closing a few doors if necessary. Amelia reminds him that she's both a doctor and the head of the cell, as he then tells her he should expect no issues with chain of command then. Jessie tries to lighten the tension, and Amelia insists on being called Dr. Blackwell as she prepares for the brief. On the medical table is one of the large leeches Jessie and Scott brought in, dissected. She explains to Jessie that the leech is a bloodsucker, but its acid prevents blood from clotting. Jessie asks if it's like a container, and Amelia confirms, saying it's ancient and unlike anything they've ever documented. Jessie reasons that Felicity must be feeding these leeches to her familiars and decides he needs to investigate the mill again to make sense of it all. Amelia explains that the McCollum Sawmill was established in 1845 as a classic small-town family business, but after Elijah McCollum's death, it was bought up by a private investor, an amalgamation of banks, Oilfields, and more. Jessie wonders aloud why such a large investment group would bother with a sawmill in the middle of nowhere, but Amelia assures him that everything was done above board. Jessie asks if the surrounding forest held any ritualistic or native significance, but Amelia replies that there's nothing of note. Jessie shrugs, says he'll figure it out for himself, and thanks her as she coldly responds that she lives to serve and would like to get back to her studies. Sometime later, Jessie arrives at the sawmill, dismounts his horse, and activating his gauntlet as he heads in on foot. Approaching the main building, his zapper begins to react. He activates it, revealing a massive glamour. The gauntlet highlights a mystical path leading to the source that Chester had mentioned. Jessie travels to various locations throughout the sawmill complex, searching for each source of the glamour. Along the way, he battles a variety of new and unusual sanguisiege, all determined to keep him away from the truth. When he finally destroys the last source, a shockwave ripples back to the glamour, weakening it and causing the structure to destabilize. Sliding down a nearby rope, Jessie returns to the glamour, activates the zapper, and strikes it. The electrical current shatters the illusion, revealing the structure, a ruined building crawling with leeches. Below lies a massive pit filled with blood, where thousands of leeches feast on an endless supply, ready to turn more familiars into mindless vampires. Following the leech trail deep into the woods, Jessie eventually comes across another giant piazza, this one even larger than the last. Entering the fallen creature's skull, with thousands upon thousands of leeches gorging themselves on the beast. He continues along the path near a colossal tree, the leeches now swollen to monstrous size from their feeding. At the top of the hill, a thunderous explosion shakes the earth as a monstrous creature called the Parasiter coils around the tree. It shrieks at Jessie, who steels himself for a brutal fight. He unleashes everything he's got, battling the giant leech as it lashes out with tentacles and acid. After a grueling struggle, Jessie lands the final blow. With a dying wail, the Parasiter spews blood and crashes to the ground. Jessie approaches the massive pool of blood, pulls a vial from his pouch, and fills it, realizing that this is the source of the Foulblood supply. He muses that Felicity must have found the Parasiter after the other Piazza and Baxter was discovered, and admits he's starting to hate mythology. Jessie pulls out his flamethrower, ignites it, and watches with a hint of satisfaction as he incinerates the creature's remains. He cuts off the flames, takes one last look at his handiwork, and turns to leave, heading back to Calico with the truth in hand. Sometime later, Jessie returns to Calico and finds Amelia and Scott hunched over a pile of old books, deep in research. He strolls into their room and casually asks if anyone's ever heard of a monster with a forest growing on its back, because he's brought back some samples. Amelia, not missing a beat, snatches the vial from Jessie's hand and inspects it closely, her brow furrowing with intense curiosity. Suddenly, Scott's eyes light up with excitement, and he begins frantically searching the shelves for a specific book. After a few tense moments, he finds what he's after and rushes back to the table, flipping it open with anticipation. There, he discovers that the massive ancient beast Jessie encountered is called a Micanac. Scott explains that the Native American Huron tribe considered the Micanac a lower deity. Jessie mentions that the creature was completely covered in leeches, prompting Amelia to note that this makes the Micanac another blood factory for Felicity's plans. Scott adds that this explains why the Sanguisiege were so determined to protect the mines at Baxter, using the ancient beast's blood to turn the familiars into Foulbloods. Jessie points out that while they had been fueling their army with this creature across the country, that won't be happening anymore, not after he burned it all down. Suddenly, Agent Reyes calls out for Amelia and the others to help, and the group rushes out of the room, ready for whatever new crisis awaits. They hurry out of the lower levels and up into the saloon and brothel above. Jessie rushes to the room where his father is staying and bursts through the door. Inside, he sees Vigil being attacked by William. Without hesitation, Jessie lunges in, grabbing his father and wrestling him to the ground. The struggle is fierce, but Jessie manages to reach a syringe nearby and injects it into William's arm. Gradually, William begins to calm down, and Jessie lifts him up into a seated position. Suddenly, a gun cocks. Jessie looks up to see Amelia standing in the doorway, a shotgun trained on his father. She orders Jessie to get out of the way. Unflinching, Jessie stands his ground, positioning himself protectively in front of William. He steps forward, letting the double barrel press into his gut. Then, in a flash, he snatches the weapon away from Amelia. Amelia warns Jessie that even if William doesn't kill them all right now, his psychic link with Felicity will eventually lead the vampire straight to their door. Jessie tries to brush it off, insisting that killing Sanguisiege is what the Institute is for anyway. But Amelia isn't having it. She tears into Jessie, accusing him of letting the agency run like a monarchy, saying that protocols only seem to go out the window when it's his dad who's infected. Jessie, anger rising, fires back and tells her to keep rattling off rules, calling her a shrew. Before things can get any more heated, Vigil steps in, reminding both of them they're on the same team and need to work together if they're going to survive. Amelia demands that Jessie tell her where Edgar is gone. Jessie answers that Edgar is in Morapass, collecting the plant needed for the regen compound. Amelia scoffs, saying they're wasting valuable resources on chasing a fairy tale. Vigil steps in as the voice of reason. He points out that Edgar is an experienced hunter and wouldn't be doing this if he didn't believe it might actually work. He reminds Amelia that they're at war and that saving the director of the Institute could give people hope, maybe even provide a cure for the infection. Amelia, slightly conceding, gives Jessie 24 hours to figure it out, making it clear that William will be supervised and tied up in the meantime. Jessie reluctantly agrees. He tells Amelia he'll head to the swamps to find Edgar and warns her that if she's still holding the shotgun when he gets back, she better be ready to use it. He hands the weapon back to her and storms out, determined to find Edgar and save his father, one way or another. Amelia turns to Vigil and asks why he chose to back Jessie's quest for the compound. Vigil responds that just because the Institute's scientists never found a cure, it doesn't mean she shouldn't get a shot at it. After all, they never let her take a stab. He points out that their cell has a knack for making the impossible possible and reminds her he made the zapper better than it was before. He even credits Scott for finding their best lead yet and says that if anyone could craft a cure, it was her. Meanwhile, Jessie arrives at the swamps and begins searching the area. He finds a set of tracks and quickly determines they belong to Edgar, guessing that Edgar likely found the plant. Following the trail deeper, Jessie realizes he's entered an area filled with massive spider webs, an ominous sign that Edgar is being hunted by a stalker, a monstrous spider creature. Jessie presses on until he too is ambushed by the stalker, which bursts through the webbing with a screech, ready to attack. The battle is fierce, but Jessie holds his own, eventually piercing the creature's chest and slamming it down, ending the fight. With the stalker defeated, Jessie picks up Edgar's trail again and pushes deeper into the swamp. Back in Calico, Amelia continues her research on the bloom with Vigil. She warns that the plant is surrounded by myths and legends and insists they stick to the facts. She states that some say it's blasphemy to the vampire royal bloodline. Vigil asks if it could work from a biological standpoint. Amelia says that some legends claim mythical properties, and with careful research, it might be possible. Vigil points out how many lives could be saved if it turns out to be a cure. Amelia promises nothing, but says she'll do her best. In the swamps, Jessie finds more signs of Edgar, who is still pressing forward despite his injuries. He follows the trail to an ancient structure deep in the swamp, infested with swarms of insects. After some puzzle solving at the gates, Jessie finally gets inside. The sight that greets him is grim, a room filled with bodies and blood. In one corner, he finds Edgar, injured and trapped by huge calcified vines. Edgar warns Jessie as a massive insectoid monster known as the Hive Crone emerges. Jessie braces for battle as the creature summons Sanguisiege minions to aid it. The fight is brutal, but through skill and a bit of luck, Jessie comes out on top, slaying the Hive Crone and its minions. Jessie rushes over to help Edgar up. Edgar, grunting in pain, thanks Jessie, but insists he had it under control. Edgar explains he found what the locals call La Orca de la Vida, or something close, and suggests that bringing it back to Calico could turn the tide of the war. Jessie apologizes for dragging Edgar into this mess, saying that rescuing him is starting to become a habit. Jessie admits Edgar can't keep doing this forever, but Edgar points out that when vampires attacked the Institute, William didn't run, and neither will he. Men like them, Edgar says, don't really retire. When they're lucky enough to survive, there's never anything normal waiting for them. He hopes Jessie will find something different someday. Edgar adds that with the Institute gone, Jessie and William are going to need all the help they can get. Jessie teases Edgar, saying first he brings him flowers, then he gets all emotional, and now he's just waiting for the kiss. Edgar fires back with his own term of endearment, and the two share a laugh before turning to leave. Together, they exit the swamp and begin the long journey back to Calico, carrying with them the hope of a cure and the knowledge that the fight is far from over. Later that evening, Amelia paces anxiously outside the saloon, waiting for Jessie's return. In the distance, Jessie and Edgar ride in, but Edgar's mood sours as he spots Harrow's airship flying overhead, making its approach toward the saloon. Sensing trouble, Jessie accuses Amelia of betrayal, calling her a backstabbing traitor. Edgar steps in to calm him down, asking Amelia if she really called Harrow about William. Amelia, frustrated, insists she had nothing to do with it, and remarks that it's nice to see how much trust they have in her. She says that unlike them, her town and cell were not built on betrayal, then asks if they managed to get the plant. Edgar confirms, and Amelia tells them there are supplies waiting in the lab. Jessie heads inside, and Edgar says they only need 5 minutes. Amelia nods, and the three make their way into the saloon. Down in the basement, Edgar begins preparing the plant, while Jessie kneels down in front of his restrained father. He checks over William, reaches for his face, and then takes the syringe from Edgar, injecting it into William's arm. After a few tense seconds, William snaps awake, gasping for air. Jessie asks how he's feeling, and William says it feels like someone else's thoughts are in his head. Panicked, William says he can see Felicity and insists he needs to stop her, then suddenly shouts that she's in Dickinson. William's eyes glaze over as Felicity takes control, speaking to Jessie through him. She says she can see Jessie, wants to know where he is, and asks where they might be hiding, demanding William let her in completely. Suddenly, William is electrocuted as Edgar flips the switch on the chair. Seeing his father in agony, Jessie yells for Edgar to stop. Edgar clarifies that it was Felicity in control, and now she and William are linked. Jessie insists he needs to get to Dickinson, believing his father is still fighting back against her. Edgar doubts Harrow will believe their story, but Jessie tells him to try and convince Harrow, and to watch William closely, warning him not to flip the switch again. A few moments later, Jessie heads to the briefing room, where Harrow and Amelia are waiting. Harrow, feigning sympathy, says he's been told about William's death and offers condolences, insisting the country needs a win right now, not more grief. Amelia informs Jessie that despite William's demise, she told Harrow about Jessie's destruction of Felicity's leech factory at the Sawmill. Harrow acknowledges the victory, but says no one is safe with Felicity and her army on the loose, especially since they don't know her current location. Jessie corrects him, saying he knows Felicity is in Dickinson. Harrow presses him for the source, but Jessie refuses to say, only that the intel is solid. Harrow tells him he can go after Felicity in Dickinson, but only after making a stop in Kingston first. Harrow explains there's a briefcase with sensitive information that needs to be secured at the Kingston Oilfields. Jessie protests, arguing that with Dickinson's 3 railways, Felicity could be using them to move the leeches. Harrow ignores his concern, spotting Vigil and asking if he knows the way to Kingston. Amelia interjects, pointing out that Vigil is their best engineer and not suited for field work. But Harrow dismisses her, insisting that as the one funding everything, he wants that briefcase back now. Jessie volunteers, saying he'll retrieve it. Harrow reveals that the private investor group behind the Sawmill and Kingston Oilfields has been identified, and Jessie quickly realized it was DeBano. Harrow confirms, explaining that DeBano and Felicity illegally acquired these sites, and now the government is going to reclaim them all. Jessie argues that sounds more like lawyer work than hunter work, but Harrow replies that a lawyer and the National Guard have already been sent in, only to find the place guarded by something far worse. Jessie asks what exactly he's supposed to be looking for, and Harrow explains his accountant says everything is stashed in a briefcase at the oil fields on the far side of the lake. Jessie still can't understand why this takes priority over hunting Felicity and Dickinson, but Harrow insists. Wars cost money, and this could be the key to turning the tide. With no choice, Jessie sets out for Kingston Oilfields, determined to get the job done. Jessie arrives at the Kingston Oilfields and finds the area flooded with oil, and a few surviving oilfield workers huddled together in fear. He approaches one and asks where the main office is. The man warns him that the place is overrun with vampires. Another worker adds that the National Guard is fighting, but being overwhelmed by the monsters. The first man then says they're all doomed if help doesn't arrive soon. With that, Jessie presses into the oil fields, helping any survivors he can along the way. He eventually makes his way to the gates of the levee causing the oil flood and gets it working again, which allows the oil to recede and opens up a path to the other side. As he moves through the newly cleared area, Jessie takes in the grim sight of fallen soldiers and workers, lives lost, all for Harrow's documents. Fighting off more monsters, putting out fires, and rescuing as many workers as possible, Jessie finally reaches the main office and heads inside. There, he's greeted by Jonathan Biddle, Harrow's accountant. Jonathan, relieved, says he's glad somebody finally came to rescue him, and he explains he's been hiding for a week. Jessie cuts him off, telling him to watch his mouth. He's only here for Harrow's documents. Jonathan begins to deny any knowledge of the documents, but Jessie quickly figures out his game, calling him the accountant. Jonathan admits it, saying he was promised backup if he kept the documents safe. Jessie delivers the bad news. Harrow doesn't care about him. He's here for the documents, not for a rescue, and DC wants them back. Jonathan, frustrated, calls Harrow an asshole, explaining that Harrow doesn't want the property for the government, he wants it for himself. Jonathan reveals Harrow talked him into helping him, but now he's been left out to dry. Jessie asks what Jonathan's cut was supposed to be, and Jonathan says 10%. Jessie takes the documents and tells Jonathan he hopes that 10% was worth all the lives lost for their greed. As Jessie turns to leave, Jonathan panics, asking how he's supposed to get home. Jessie, without missing a beat, tells him to walk and heads back to Calico, briefcase in hand. Sometime later, Jessie storms into the Calico base, anger burning in his eyes. He confronts Harrow, accusing them of not funding the war, but lining his own pockets. Harrow tries to feign ignorance, but quickly realizes that Jonathan must have betrayed him. Growing more furious, Jessie scolds Harrow for sending servicemen to their deaths for nothing more than his greed, warning that he'll go straight to the president and that Harrow is as good as dead. Harrow laughs at Jessie's anger, calling it comical. Amelia steps in, telling Harrow these are serious accusations, but Harrow slams his fist down and interrupts her. He declares himself promoted to the Secretary of War, the literal right hand of God, now that his father is dead. Harrow then sneers at Jessie, asking if the president would really take the word of a fang chaser over his own. Jessie's patience finally snaps. He grabs Harrow by the throat, silencing him. Gasping, Harrow threatens Jessie, daring him to go through with it and give him the excuse to throw Jessie in jail and ruin William's legacy. Jessie shoves Harrow back, as Harrow says that the Harrow Institute does have a nice ring to it. Amelia tries to calm the tension, suggesting that Harrow should leave, but he cuts her off, snapping that she should stop groveling and get back to the kitchen. Furious, Jessie and Amelia storm off, with Harrow yelling that they should go find some vampires to kill. Jessie heads to the basement, where he finds his father awake and talking to Vigil and Edgar. William, unusually jovial, tells Jessie about his conversation with Vigil, as Vigil describes future modifications to the Gauntlet. Jessie and Edgar exchange bewildered glances, and Edgar jokes that maybe they shocked William a little too much. Jessie tells William he's glad to see him up, but warns that they have a dire situation. He explains that to hide William's infection, they told Harrow he had died. Since then, Harrow has abused his new power, sending them on pointless missions while Felicity builds her army. William observes that Harrow knows what's right, but has been corrupted by his lust for power. Jessie says it's only gotten worse now that Harrow is in charge. If they make a single mistake, he'll shut the Institute down. William says that if they play their cards right, they could catch Felicity and end the war. He asks to be let loose, but Edgar interrupts, insisting they'll wait for Amelia's okay before doing anything rash. William tells him not to worry and that Harrow isn't stupid. Harrow knows that without the Institute, the country would be lost to the Sanguisiege. William then asks Jessie which is more important, Harrow's approval or ending the war. Jessie, Shifting focus, asks what William saw while linked to Felicity. William describes that he saw nothing but death, monsters, and boxcars full of blood. Jessie quickly realizes Felicity is transporting the leeches by train. Vigil is alarmed, pointing out that if that's true, Dickinson, being a cattle railway hub, would be the perfect site for an outbreak, one they could never contain. Without hesitation, Jessie heads out for Dickinson, determined to find the truth and stop Felicity's plan. Jessie arrives at Dickinson under the cover of night and finds the town completely ablaze. As he makes his way through the chaos, he sees piles of dead cattle stacked high and burning like bonfires. Pushing deeper into the town, he is confronted by both old and new vampires. Armed with Vigil's latest weaponry, Jessie manages to defeat every sanguisiege that crosses his path. He presses on to a part of town not yet touched by the flames. Suddenly, Felicity's voice taunts him, saying she'd offer him a drink, but he wouldn't like what's in the cup. The two exchange barbs as Jessie heads for the church at the top of the hill. When he arrives, he finds the entrance barricaded and townspeople trapped inside. The sanguisiege now block his approach. Felicity smiles as she and her Foulbloods turn to face Jessie. He demanded she let the people go, insisting the fight is with him. Felicity retorts that humans build empires on the bodies of the conquered, ignoring the cost. She claims humans are the real vampires, that her kind would never abandon one of their own to rot in the gutter. Jessie counters that she won't turn the survivors, but Felicity, growing angry, insists he isn't listening. She says those people don't matter, and he should start accepting that reality. She begins to laugh maniacally, then snaps her fingers, setting the church ablaze, the screams of the townsfolk echoing as flames engulf the building. As the church burns, Felicity flees. Her minions surround Jessie and attack. He fights with everything he has, struggling through the horde until battered and bloodied, he takes down the last Foulblood, leaving nothing behind but pools of blood in the dirt. Realizing he cannot save those inside, Jessie spots Felicity trying to escape by train. He immediately gives chase, cutting his way through more vampires as Felicity taunts him. She boasts that she has all the Foulbloods she needs and that more join her cause every day. She tells Jessie that in the end, nothing else matters. The only truth is that you either adapt or die. Jessie finally reaches the central train hub and sees Felicity standing atop a massive pit. As he enters the pit to confront her, the last of her bats, carrying the infection, are loaded onto a train full of leeches. Felicity cradles one in her arms as the door slams shut, calling for boarding and announcing their imminent departure. The trains are also packed with hundreds of humans being given ancient blood. Felicity taunts Jessie, asking if he can hear their screams and offering him a choice: join the chorus or be humanity's final note. She tells him that change always breeds fear and that sometimes progress needs a little push. Laughing, she signals her guardian, a creature known as the Brutch, which bursts from the ground to confront Jessie. Felicity tells the Brutch not to kill Jessie. After all, it would break his father's heart, then turns away as the beach screeches and begins its assault. Sanguisides surround the pit, and as Jessie battles the monstrous creature, more vampires leap in to aid it. The fight is brutal, but Jessie prevails, slaying Felicity's loyal pet. Exhausted, Jessie barely has time to catch his breath before a massive creature with long blonde hair charges at him, sending him flying across the pit. Dazed, Jessie hits the ground hard, struggling to remain conscious. As his vision fades, he can just make out his attacker, who shouts adapt or die, before walking away, leaving Jessie to finally lose consciousness in the darkness. Sometime later, Jessie wakes up in another church in the next town over. A reverend sits at his bedside, tending to him and praying. As Jessie slowly comes to, he sits up and puts his hat back on. Reverend Stravinsky admits he was starting to worry Jessie would never wake up. Jessie says he feels like a wreck, and the Reverend tells him he took a hard hit in Dickinson from the sanguisiege, but he's alive and ready to keep fighting. Jessie admits it didn't do much good. The Reverend tries to reassure him, saying that no one is immune to life's hardships. Jessie brushes him off, and the Reverend jokes that he thought all Rentiers were built sterner. Jessie asks how he knew about the Rentiers, and the Reverend explains that a long while ago, several had made camp nearby, and that they had a fondness for moonshine. Jessie is surprised to hear about a camp, and the Reverend mentions their lightning storms have sparked rumors of a thunderbird in the area. Intrigued, Jessie asks for more details. The The Reverend tells him that when the agents got drunk, they went on about channeling lightning through metal gloves. Jesse realizes he needs to inform Calico and asks if there's a telegraph station nearby. The Reverend says there is, but the town is overrun with vampires. He explains that after the Dickinson incident, vampires started coming out of holes in the ground, and their numbers keep growing. Jesse tells the Reverend to send a runner to the telegraph station and get everyone else into the church until sunrise. The Reverend hands Jesse a weapon left behind by one of the agents, asking if there's anything else they can do. Jesse simply tells him to pray. Jesse leaves the church to confront the threat. He moves through the town, fighting off hordes of sanguisuge and destroying several nests they've made in the area. Eventually, he returns to the church, now completely surrounded by Foulbloods and a highborn. Jesse fights with everything he has, eventually vanquishing them all with his Gauntlet. The church doors swing open, and the Reverend comes out, telling Jesse he's their hero. Jesse asks about the telegram, and the Reverend hands him the message. Jesse reads it and tells the Reverend he was right. The mountain facility may have exactly what he needs to upgrade his zapper. The Reverend replies that the Lord works in mysterious ways, to which Jesse admits he was a little afraid he'd say that. The Reverend offers Jesse a fresh kit, but Jesse declines. The Reverend reminds him that sometimes you have to let people help, noting that even Jesus had his disciples. Jesse grins and quips that one of them turned out to be a real asshole. The Reverend then remembers that they sent a telegraph for help and that the authorities said not to worry. Harold would personally handle it. As Jesse prepares to leave, a woman brings him a horse, saying he's done more than enough and they won't forget it. Jesse tells them to contact the Calico cell directly next time they need help. The Reverend wishes Jesse luck, telling him that the world needs more heroes like him. Jesse tips his hat, then turns and rides out into the storm, heading for the mountain facility and whatever new challenges await him there. The storm rages on as Jesse finally arrives at the long-abandoned mountain research facility. He surveys the scene. A massive metal cage and a treacherous mountain pass stand between him and his goal. Suddenly, a loud yell echoes as Vigil tumbles off a nearby cliff and lands in the snow. Jesse deadpans that maybe next time, Vigil should try following the map. Vigil, undeterred, is thrilled to see Jesse alive and admits that everyone back at Calico thought he was a goner. Jesse points out the enormous metal dome, redirecting Vigil's attention to the task at hand. Vigil tells Jesse that this is where his father invented the Gauntlet, and he never expected to see it in person. Jesse tells him to focus. He needs his zapper upgraded and asks what it'll take. Vigil says they need a substantial power source and will have to reconnect the transmitters to the current reservoir. Jesse reminds him to stick to plain English, so Vigil explains he just needs to do some sciencey stuff to make the zapper more powerful. Jesse volunteers to clear out the vampires while Vigil preps the station. Making his way through the area, Jesse slaughters sanguisuge and helps Vigil reconnect the massive towers to the central reservoir. After dispatching a few more monsters, Jesse reaches an elevator and rides it to the top of the cliff near the reservoir. With electricity now flowing through the station, Jesse traverses a narrow, snowy path and finally enters the metallic cage. Vigil surveys the machinery and tells Jesse everything looks standard. They just need to redirect all electricity into the Gauntlet. Jesse tells him to just give orders and he'll handle the rest. Vigil instructs Jesse to head to the center of the cage. As Jesse arrives, he sees a swarm of boo hags descending from above. Jesse urges Vigil to hurry, and Vigil says he needs a few more seconds. The creatures charge, and Jesse warns they're out of time. Suddenly, electricity gathers overhead, channeling raw power into the zapper. Jesse raises his hand and slams it into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that obliterates the monsters. Jesse, thrilled with his new power, praises Vigil for the upgrade. Just then, a pack of Naggle burst into the cage. Jesse wastes no time, using his enhanced abilities to tear through the beast, zipping around the battlefield and dispatching them with ruthless efficiency. After the final creature falls, Jesse and Vigil catch their breath, satisfied with their victory, and begin making their way back to Calico, ready for whatever comes next. Back at headquarters, Vigil is thrilled, boasting that his brains and Jesse's brawn make an unstoppable team, then quickly backpedaling, realizing how that sounds. Suddenly, Harrow barges into the saloon, calling for Jesse. Harrow sarcastically says he's glad Jesse has recovered from his father's funeral and jokes that he never told his father he loved him, before sarcastically correcting himself and admitting that, of course, William isn't actually dead. Harrow's mood turns bitter as he accuses them of letting the head of the Rentier Institute turn into a vampire. Vigil tries to defend William, pointing out that if it weren't for the director, they never would have found Felicity. Harrow brushes it off, saying that means nothing unless they brought Felicity's head back with them. At that moment, Amelia arrives and cuts Harrow off. Though he clearly hates to do it, Harrow acknowledges her as the new director of the soon-to-be renamed institute. He then orders her to lock up Jessie and Vigil for treason, extract any information she can from William, and then put a bullet in his head, like they should have already done. Amelia meets his demands with silence, prompting Harrow to ask if she's having a woman moment, and insist it be done immediately. Amelia offers a different solution, telling Harrow, in no uncertain terms, to leave Calico and never come back, adding a few choice expletives for good measure. Harrow calls her ungrateful, but before he can continue, Jessie draws his revolver and fires it into the air, sending Harrow tumbling to the floor. Jessie approaches slowly, asking Harrow if he really wants to keep pushing his luck. Harrow threatens to report everything to President Cleveland, boasting about their dinner plans at a musical the rest of them weren't invited to. With that, Harrow storms out of the saloon. Vigil, relieved, jokes that he thought he was going to crap his pants. Jessie praises Amelia for standing her ground, teasing her about the potty mouth remark. Amelia, still riding a surge of adrenaline, warns Jessie to tread lightly with the jokes and tells him he needs to go see his father. Jessie agrees, and they all head to the basement. There, they find William on his feet, enthusiastically teaching Scott how to throw a punch. Amelia informs Jessie that the compound they gave William had some side effects. Jessie approaches his father, remarking that he thought William had a bad leg. William laughs it off, saying he feels younger than ever and is ready to join Jessie to find Felicity, just like the old times. Jessie, still hesitant, tells William to wait and see what Harrow does next. William laughs, claiming Harrow couldn't lead anyone out of an outhouse. Jessie turns to Amelia, asking if his father is really okay. She says that virologically, William should have already turned, but if he hasn't yet, the cure must have worked. William interrupts, saying his hearing is better than ever, and urges them to stop being worrywarts like Edgar. Jessie asks where Edgar is, and Amelia explains that after everyone thought Jessie had died in Dickinson, Edgar went on a revenge tour, tracking down their old pal Chester Morgan, thinking he might have information on Felicity. Jessie realizes that Chester survived the explosion and should have known he'd find a way to make it out alive. Amelia adds that Chester now spends his days running guns in the mountains, and Edgar is tracking him down, armed with dynamite. William shrugs, suggesting they let Edgar get himself killed so they can focus on what matters, but Jessie vehemently disagrees. Determined to keep the team together, Jessie leaves Calico to search for Edgar. Jessie pushes through the rugged mountain terrain, muttering to himself along the way, picking up a new weapon for his trouble. Eventually, Jessie hears an explosion in the distance and immediately assumes it must be Edgar. As he approaches, he finds Edgar visibly frustrated, punching the air. Edgar, in a fit of anger, kicks over a detonator, having just failed to destroy Chester's glamour. Jessie jokes that Edgar just wasted good dynamite. Edgar turns, and without warning, punches Jessie hard in the face, knocking him to the ground. Edgar storms over, warning Jessie that next time he dies, he should make sure to stay dead. Jessie assures him he'll remember that, and Edgar offers a hand, helping him back to his feet, while cursing that Jessie's antics will be the death of him one day. Edgar then says he'll let Jessie break the glamour, since he came all this way. Jessie approaches, using the Gauntlet to expose the glamour's source trails, then follows and destroys them one by one. Returning to the glamour, he uses the zapper to shatter it, and the two make their way through to Chester's cabin. Inside, they find Chester pacing nervously. He turns, spots them, and with a mock welcoming gesture, opens his arms as if happy to see them. Jessie charges in, shoving Chester into a chair, as Edgar pins Chester's hand to the table with his knife. Chester screams in pain, insisting he was going to talk anyway and ask what's wrong with them. Jessie, sarcastically, says it's a force of habit and tells him to start talking. Chester asks if they heard about the bats carrying the ancient blood. Edgar grumbles that the leeches were already enough of a problem and demands to know where to find them. Chester explains that after Debano's death, Felicity invested in the Persephone, the train manufacturer, which is conveniently in the middle of nowhere. Jessie observes that it's the perfect breeding ground to send Foulbloods across the country. Chester confirms this, saying Felicity has the money to pull it off, all stored in a bank in Carmine that doubles as her home base. He adds that Felicity is using every resource to execute her endgame. Edgar asks what that is, and Chester says she wants to destabilize everything and is headed for DC. Edgar calls this move by Felicity ambitious. Chester goes on, saying that Debano found Felicity in a gutter and turned her, and now she thinks she's queen of everything with her new army. Edgar pulls the knife out of Chester's hand as Jessie asks why Chester would help, considering a war should be good for business for him. Chester admits that Felicity's plans are making it harder for all Siege, especially after what she did to William. Jessie laughs it off, saying not to worry about William, as Edgar tells Chester they used the orchid on him. Chester's demeanor shifts to fear. He warns that the orchid doesn't cure, it only suppresses, and that when the turn comes back, it does so with a vengeance. Jessie, not wanting to believe it, protests that his father is fine. Chester insists Jessie only saw what he wanted to see. One drop of blood will change everything. Alarmed, Jessie and Edgar rush out, heading back to Calico to check on William, hoping they're not already too late. Jessie and Edgar return to Calico and step into the saloon, taking in the grisly scene before them. Blood and mutilated bodies everywhere. They spot Scott slumped in a chair near the bar, clutching a severe wound on his shoulder. Edgar rushes over, trying to get Scott's attention and focus him. Scott looks up, terrified, as Edgar urgently asks what happened. Struggling to speak, Scott explains that William and Virgil were working together on something when Virgil accidentally cut his hand. In a sudden fit of rage, William attacked Virgil, tearing into him and spilling blood everywhere. Jessie's concern immediately shifts to Amelia. He signals to Edgar that he's going to go check on her, and Scott, a voice trembling, cries that there was nothing he could do. Edgar chases after Jessie, both men racing to the medical bay. Inside, they find Amelia standing over Virgil's brutally ravaged body. She explains that Virgil had been thrilled to work with the legendary William Rentier. It meant everything to him. Amelia blames herself, admitting she had no proof the orchid would work, but William seemed better, so she let herself believe it. Jessie tries to console her, saying they all thought it had worked, but Amelia insists she should have known. It was supposed to be her expertise. Anger rising, Jessie steels himself to go after his father, but Edgar stops him, asking if he can really handle what comes next. Jessie replies that he's been hunting since he was 10 and can track a newborn with his eyes closed. Edgar clarifies that's not what he meant. Jessie, resolute, says too many have been hurt because he spared his father, and that William Rentier is dead. It's time to accept it and do what he should have done from the start. Jessie storms out of the saloon, ready to hunt down his father, while Edgar stays behind to comfort Amelia in the aftermath of their loss. Jessie makes his way to the Persephone train manufacturer, where Chester claimed the bats were being stored. As the sun sets, he enters the area and snatches a bat mid-flight, crushing it in his hand and inspecting it closely before tossing it aside. Determined, he heads into the train yard, hunting for any sign of his father. As Jessie searches, he hears William's voice taunting him, commenting that Jessie smells different and that he carries himself with newfound confidence. Jessie cuts him off, demanding that William show himself. Pushing deeper into the train yard, Jessie battles his way through waves of Foulblood, relentless in his pursuit. As he gets closer, William continues to try to sway his son, insisting that humans are obsolete, that they're just poor imitations of the gods, and claiming that he himself has now become one. Jessie eventually locates the glamour, concealing the building where William is hiding. He shatters the illusion, exposing the truth, as William mocks Jessie for being weak without his gauntlet. Jessie follows a swirling flock of bats into the building, making his way to the highest platform, where he finds his father standing alone in quiet contemplation. William, now a Siege highborn, tells Jessie to listen to the song of the bats. He declares that this is the final choice. He urges Jessie to forget about inventions and insists that a single drop of blood is all that separates them from becoming gods. Jessie fires back, asking if William gave Virgil the same choice. William snaps, insisting that none of the others matter, and that if Jessie joined him, he could accomplish more than any of them ever did. William says he won't apologize for progress, and tells Jessie to adapt or die. Jessie recognizes Felicity's words, accusing her of controlling William's mind. William silences him, asserting his authority as Jesse's father and threatening to force him to come along if he won't do it willingly. Then William attacks, with the speed and ferocity of a highborn vampire, amplified by his skills as a hunter. The battle is fierce, pushing Jesse to his limits as he uses every trick and tool in his arsenal to keep up. Eventually, Jesse stuns William, but the fight isn't over. William sprouts 4 monstrous tentacles from his pack and takes flight, circling the platform. Even with his upgraded zapper, Jesse struggles to gain the upper hand. Forced to be patient, Jesse waits for the right moment to strike, and finally lands the decisive blow. Jesse rushes in, stabbing his father through the heart with his gauntlet, causing William to collapse. Jesse then tears out some of the remaining tentacles, watching as William falls flat on his back. William, defeated, tells Jesse they could have achieved greatness together, but Jesse reminds him that they did, until the day William died. Drawing his revolver, Jesse aims it at his father's head. William warns that it will take more than stubbornness to find Felicity, but Jesse retorts that he knows she's in Carmine and plans to stop her before she reaches DC. William gives a final laugh, saying he taught his son well, and that he'd better pray it's enough. Jesse pulls the trigger, ending his father's torment, then holsters his revolver. As he turns to leave, he pauses, lights a match, and sets his father's body ablaze, walking away as the flames consume the past. Back in Calico, Scott approaches Edgar at the saloon and hands him a telegram. Edgar reads it, and when Scott asks what it says, Edgar breaks the news that William is dead. He adds that Jesse needs them in Carmine to help rob a bank, and tells Scott to hurry up and start the airship. Scott corrects him, saying that it's a lighter-than-air vessel, and then asks about Harrow, wondering if he'll be angry that they took it. Edgar simply says Harrow can suck. Scott quickly chimes in to finish the thought, and Edgar agrees, moving him along. Meanwhile, in Carmine, the city is fortified, with barricades down Main Street, as if everyone knew Jesse and his crew were coming. Jesse kicks open the main gate and is immediately confronted by familiars. He tears through the human opposition, pushing deeper into town. Navigating around the barricades, Jesse slides down a rope right into a horde of familiars and sanguisides guarding the bank. He gets to work taking out the minigunners perched atop the bank, then turning his attention to the larger foes attacking him all at once. With timing, precision, and every bit of skill he's got, Jesse finally manages to take down the Foulblood. Heading inside the bank, Jesse blows up the vault door. Inside, he finds many safes already open and his gauntlet flickering, detecting a glamour. He activates the zapper, revealing mystical trails that lead to the glamour's source. Jesse heads back out, searching the area and destroying each source one by one before finally returning to the vault. He powers up his zapper and shatters the fractured glamour, revealing what's hidden on the other side. Jesse follows a long, dark hallway that leads to a massive vat of blood. Surrounding the vat are hundreds of leeches and bodies, all draining their blood into the pool. Inside the vat, Debano's head is alive and waiting. Debano tells Jesse he can't believe he thought Felicity would be there. As Jesse approaches, the highborn mocks him, saying they all watched him through his father, that Jesse was never that important to him. Jesse demands to know where Felicity is, and Debano claims that William saw Jesse as a dog to be leashed, but even he couldn't be controlled. Jesse rips the leeches from the vat as Debano taunts him, saying it's fear, not anger, that drives Jesse, and that he can't trust himself without his father. He calls Jesse a scared little boy and tells him to give up, insisting they've always been one step ahead. Jesse spots a bottle of whiskey and picks it up. He tells Debano he knows their plan is to go after the president and turn him into a vampire. Jesse reminds Debano that he shut down the leech farm, and without enough Foulblood, they can't just walk into the White House. Jesse pours the whiskey into the vat, and as Debano realizes what's happening, Jesse lights a match. Jesse asks how Felicity plans to get to the president, and as Debano begs him to stop, Jesse calls his bluff and drops the match. The blood ignites, flames slowly creeping toward Debano's head. Finally, Debano gives in and reveals that the attack will be at the Chesterfield Opera House, where the president will be with minimal security. Satisfied, Jesse grabs Debano's head as the vampire warns him it changes nothing. He'll never make it. Jesse tells him to watch and learn, then heads outside. At that moment, Edgar and the others arrive overhead in the airship. Jessie boards, and the team makes haste for Washington, D.C., racing against time to prevent Felicity's final move. As the sun sets, the airship speeds towards Washington, D.C. On board, Jessie warns the team that Felicity will have brought serious protection and that every bullet will count. Their top priority is keeping her away from the president. Inside the opera house, chaos reigns. The theater is on fire, and several boo hags and sanguisudes feed on the terrified audience. Edgar bursts onto the scene, rifle blazing, quickly taking down several vampires. Amelia and Scott join the fight, and together they carve a path toward the opera hall. A screeching vampire lunges at them, but Jessie catches it midair by the throat and slams it into the ground, finishing it off with the zapper. Amelia announces that she, Scott, and Edgar will go find President Cleveland, while Edgar tells Jessie to give Felicity their regards. Amelia adds with gusto that they should tear the place a new asshole, prompting Jessie to joke about her potty mouth. Amelia shoots a boo hag from the ceiling and tells Jessie to get moving. Jessie heads into the main theater, where he's confronted by Felicity's remaining minions. He steadies himself, and with quick skill and relentless effort, dispatches them all. Once the last foe falls, Jessie makes his way through the rubble and flames, climbing up onto the stage. Felicity laughs, tossing a human body near Jessie's feet. She taunts him, saying she's glad he's here to witness the president's transformation and the sharing of all his secrets. Jessie steps forward, promising to put an end to her plans. Felicity, anger flaring, dashes across the stage, but Jessie charges his gauntlet and lands a powerful strike, sending her flying. Felicity rises, telling Jessie she tried to make him understand that the past must be destroyed to build a future. Jessie counters that her dumb ideas cost him everything, including turning his father against everything he stood for, a fate far worse than death. Charging his gauntlet, Jessie vows she won't do that to anyone else. Suddenly, Felicity convulses, her body twisting and contorting as she transforms into the massive beast Jessie had glimpsed back in Dickinson. She roars at Jessie, launching into a brutal battle. At times, Felicity holds the upper hand, but Jessie fights back, eventually landing a blow that halts her rampage. Enraged, Felicity grows even larger, moving faster and striking harder. She leaps onto the walls, crashing down in an attempt to crush Jessie, but he stays one step ahead, stunning her again. Pushed to her limits, Felicity sprouts spikes and doubles in size, then unleashes a final ferocious attack. The two trade blows as Felicity sends pieces of the ceiling crashing down. Jessie digs deep, finally gaining the upper hand and knocking Felicity to the ground. He charges his zapper to full power, then launches himself at her, delivering a devastating punch to the face. Felicity collapses, her body consumed by the gauntlet's energy, bursting into flames and exploding in a brilliant white light that douses the fire throughout the theater. Jessie recovers and stares at Felicity's lifeless corpse lying at the center of the stage. His thoughts are interrupted as Harrow congratulates him, as he then turns to President Cleveland and proclaiming that the Institute was finally successful under his guidance. Harrow smugly adds that the Institute can't be run like a family business or by a woman. Amelia has heard enough. She punches Harrow in the face, knocking him to the floor. Turning to the president, she exposes Harrow's abuse and corruption, insisting he be locked up. President Cleveland agrees, telling Harrow that if even half of Amelia's accusations are true, he's finished. The president then turns to Jessie, saying that he and William were great friends, and after seeing Jessie in action, he's confident that their Rentier legacy is in good hands. He offers Jessie the job of Secretary of War, but Jessie declines, admitting he's not cut out for a desk job. The president laughs, not surprised, and instead promises to give Jessie full control of the Rentier Institute, trusting him to lead the fight ahead. Jessie agrees, saying they need to be bigger and better than ever to win. Amelia insists on being smarter, and Jessie quickly adds that better protocols wouldn't hurt either. The president laughs again, declaring that they have things well in hand, and pledge the government's support. Jessie and the others take a moment to savor their victory. Then, together with the president, they leave the opera house, ready to build the Institute and continue the fight against the vampire threat, and whatever the West throws their way next. And that's the full story of Evil West, a world where monsters don't just haunt the shadows, but shape the fate of a nation. Jessie Rentier and his allies have faced betrayal, loss, and unspeakable horrors, trading one-liners and bullets in equal measure just to keep humanity from the brink. They've battled highborn vampires, fallen friends, and the kind of nightmares that would make most folks run for the hills. But our journey through the wild, weird West isn't over yet. Next time, we'll dive deep into the full history of the Rentier Institute, the secret wars, the inventions, the scandals, and shine a spotlight on the main characters who made the story unforgettable with their pasts as well. If you enjoyed this breakdown or learned something new about Evil West, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of the story? And what moments hit you the hardest? Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Your support is what keeps the lore coming and the monsters running scared. I'm Vigil, and this is Video Game Lore. Until next time, remember, it's not the monsters you see that get you, it's the ones you never see coming.